side of the hill that I live on. Thank you all. As most of you know that are here, Van Zandt County, Tim is our commissioner for this precinct, and we sure need to get him back in office. He's running again, and he's done us a great job. So consider him when you go to vote. We're here today because there's a young man that's running for the Congress, the 5th District of Texas, and he deserves our consideration. There's a lot of us who have been out on the campaign trail promoting our conservative values and candidates for quite a number of years now. And I got to know this young man by virtue of supporting somebody he worked for, and that's Ted Cruz. And all of you know just how conservative and how great Ted Cruz is, and what he's accomplished in Congress. There's a lot of us that thought he ought to be president, and we went to Iowa. And
Still do.
still do. Okay, there you go. Went to Iowa and stumped for him in sub-0 degree weather. He didn't make it. We went on to Wisconsin to stump for Trump. 6 of us went up there knocking doors, worked 10-hour days a week before the general election, and we helped to win Wisconsin for Trump. And we have this passion for candidates who espouse our beliefs in constitutional conservatism, Christian values, and Jason Wright, we feel, is the person that's going to best fill that position. I am going to introduce a man to introduce him, a very personal friend of mine, Reverend Raphael Cruz, Ted's dad. Got to know him quite well. He and I have spent time together in several campaigns. I think the most notable and the first one was when we were standing on the grassy knoll in Dallas across from the federal building. He, Reverend Brody, Reverend Scarborough, Louis Gohmert, as we called out the IRS for targeting conservative groups, and we've been on other adventures like God and Country, as he spread the word that pastors need to admonish their congregations to take our Christian values to the voting booth. And Reverend, would you come up here and introduce Jason to us?
Sure.
Reverend Raphael Cruz.
For all of you being here, that meeting was on April 15, 2009, the very first Tea Party meeting, and while we were addressing about 20,000 people out there by the courthouse, Ted was speaking at the first Tea Party meeting in Houston, addressing about 22,000 people. So we've been in the trenches from day one, and of course Ted cannot be here because Ted is still out there in the swamp. I saw Schumer on TV this morning talking about the Trump shutdown. And of course, you know, the drive-bys don't know any better. But we need to realize that we need every conservative, every constitutional conservative we can in Congress and in the Senate.
Amen.
2018 is a very critical year. It's a very critical year because, as I was talking to Jason a minute ago, over 30 congressmen are retiring this session. That means we're going to have a lot of open seats. We cannot allow liberals or even liberal Republicans to get those seats. We need to grow the Tea Party caucus, the caucus, the Freedom Caucus in the House, because that's our first line of defense. I've known Jason for several years. He's been with Ted since day one. He is without a doubt a constitutional conservative, a committed Christian man, a man of principle, a man of honor, a man who I am sure will represent each and every one of our values. He will honor the Constitution, the rule of law, limited government, and he will serve not only CD5, but the whole state of Texas. I'll tell you, Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice.
Amen.
When the wicked beareth rule, people mourn.
Amen.
We need to stand behind righteous candidates that are going to uphold not only the Constitution, but the Judeo-Christian principles on which this country was built. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't listen to what the liberal media tells you. This is a Christian country.
Amen.
And it is because of those Judeo-Christian values that we remain the freest nation on earth. But I'll tell you what, the liberals are trying to undermine over 200 years of a foundation that has been built.
Right.
And the best way we can preserve that foundation and build on it is to have men like Jason Wright represent us in Congress.
Amen.
I'll tell you, it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce to you the next congressman from CD5, Jason Wright.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you all so much, and what an honor to have Pastor Cruz say something like that. I want to give a little bit of background on how I came to where I am today, where I'm on this crazy adventure for Congress, because I'll be honest with y'all, I never saw it coming. Although a lot of my friends saw it coming, I did not. For most of my adult life, I have been two things. One, I've been an entrepreneur, small business owner, and two, I've been a conservative grassroots activist. Whenever I was 28 years old, I wanted to raise my daughters in East Texas. Now, I'm a fifth generation East Texan from Sulphur Springs. And after I finished up at SFA, we lived 6 years in Houston, and I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And so I decided to uproot the family, move them to Tyler, where I bought my first business. And there's two things that will make you even more conservative than you already are if you are conservative. That's owning your own business and signing the front of the paychecks, not just the back, and having children. And with both of those things being part of my life, I became a grassroots activist. Now, one of my first acts of activism was during Barack Obama's first presidential election. On election day, I decided I was going to hold an anti-socialist rally, which to me was synonymous with an anti-Barack Obama rally. And many of you, if you've ever been in Tyler and you drive along Loop 323 right across from T.K. Gorman High School, there's used to be a Century 21 office right across the street. Well, I owned that. And I had a marquee there, and I advertised anti-socialist rally. I had a smoker out there with one of my guys cooking brisket. I had a radio hookup. I had Louis Gohmert show up. And I also had a former Smith County Commissioner show up named Joanne Fleming. Joanne wanted to see who was this guy that was holding an anti-socialist rally right there on the loop in Tyler. And so after discussing my heart with Joanne, my heart for conservatism, my heart for getting people involved in local politics, we, together with George Stevenson and some other guys, started a little outfit that maybe y'all heard of called Grassroots America, We the People. That's where it all started. And it used to be in that conference room, in that office on the Loop where we'd hold our board meetings. And one night I was in there, we were discussing grassroots and how we were going to get it to where we wanted to go. And I said, you know what, folks, if we're ever going to make a difference, if Grassroots America is ever going to be what we want it to be, we need an executive director, and that executive director needs to be Joanne Fleming. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, having started that and working with Joanne and all of our volunteers, people like Richard Blake, who was there from the very beginning, convincing people how to become a precinct chair, how to do active block walking, how to look for the right type of candidates that wouldn't waste their local tax dollars, I decided, you know what, let's take that activism to another level. Maybe I need to put my name on the ballot. And so that's what I did. I ran for and won a seat on the Tyler City Council. It was during that time that we had a gubernatorial race in which Senator Hutchison was running against Rick Perry, and I was raising money for Rick Perry. Not paid, just a volunteer trying to raise money for conservatives, like I'd always done. I called a guy named John Atkins in Houston. And I said, John, I need some help. I'm trying to get some money raised for the governor. And he said, well, Jason, I'm not really focused on the gubernatorial race. He said, I'm trying to get my friend Ted Cruz elected to Attorney General. And like so many other people back then, I said, well, who in the heck is Ted Cruz? Little did I know. And so, fast forward, the dominoes didn't line up. Governor Perry stays our governor. And Ted almost immediately decides to run for the Senate. And I stayed right there with him. I had the pleasure of doing some stops with Raphael, and we would give speeches with the Tea Party Express, and then Senator Cruz, after a meeting at Grassroots America We the People, he asked me to do some surrogate speaking for him. So I went all over East Texas, in Upshur County, and Gregg County, and obviously Smith County, and got to fill in for some of the smaller forums that obviously he couldn't make. And so I had taken that grassroots activism to yet another level, working with Senator Cruz to get him elected as a volunteer. Well then, as Providence would have it, Ted Cruz becomes the junior senator for Texas, and what a wonderful day that was. And it wasn't long after that I get a phone call from John McClellan, who is the political director for Senator Cruz, and he said, Jason, I have a question. He said, the senator really realizes how important East Texas is, or what I've always told people was play a very small supporting role in Senator Cruz's very big work, and I was honored to do it. So now I had taken that activism to an even different level. Now, let me tell you what an East Texas Regional Director does. An East Texas Regional Director doesn't get to show up to the fancy $1,000 plate dinners and the big rallies and that sort of thing. What an East Texas Regional Director does, it's very similar to being a city councilman for the United States Senate. When somebody wants to give Senator Cruz an earful because they haven't received their Social Security check, or they received the wrong amount, or they haven't been reimbursed for their mileage driving to the VA, or the FEMA has not performed the way they were supposed to after they had suffered devastation due to Hurricane Harvey, they would love to talk to Senator Cruz, but they're going to talk to me most likely. And I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And my favorite calls were not from our fellow conservatives calling to say what a wonderful job Ted Cruz has done. I loved it whenever the most vile, foul-mouthed liberal would call, and I would make a point. Because this is what Senator Cruz demanded of his staff. Because this is how he operates as our senator. Treat every single constituent with respect, with dignity, and make sure our office is doing the job that I was elected to do. And 9 times out of 10, it would shock me. Because see, I always told people the job of an East Texas Regional Director is apolitical. It doesn't matter if you are a Social Security recipient that's a Democrat, a Republican, or you don't have a clue. Bottom line is, you're an American citizen, and if Ted Cruz represents you as his surrogate in that region, it's my job to make sure you're taken care of. And so that activism had taken a different turn. Well, here, less than 2 months ago, I'm minding my own business, hoping for that liberal phone call, upset about something, so I can have some fun that day. And instead, I get a text saying, would you ever consider running for CD5? To which I immediately said, no, Judge Kirkpatrick, I don't want to do that. And so, Joanne Fleming, she sends me a text. She says, will you pray about it? I said, sure, I'll do that. And I did. I sent Senator Cruz a text, and I said, Ted's very short to the point with his texts and any sort of electronic media. And so I said, I'm being recruited to run for CD5. What do you think? His text back to me, what are you thinking? I said, well, if I win, that means I've got to go to Congress, and that's not a very appealing thought. Crickets, he didn't say a word. So I thought about it, I prayed about it, I spoke to a lot of people that I truly admired and I respected their opinion. I came to the conclusion, no, this is not right. I actually called Bunny Pounds, who I knew was thinking about running. I said, Bunny, I'm not going to do it. The day that I said to Joanne Fleming, to Ted Cruz, to John Drogan, to Jason Johnson, to Bunny Pounds, to my mom, to my dad, to my youngest brother, who I love and is one of my greatest sounding boards, that I wasn't going to do it. And when I told Rylan and Abby Wright, my daughters, I'm not going to do it. And the disappointment in their eyes. I laid in bed that night and I fasted all day. And y'all, I tossed and turned. I'm surprised I didn't wake up with a sore head. And I woke up finally after getting about 3 hours of sleep that night, and I felt like the biggest coward. I literally felt like Jonah running from the battle that he was being called to. And by the way, I don't think comparing Washington, D.C. to Nineveh is very unreasonable. Just telling y'all right now. That's exactly how I felt. And because of that, and because I knew that one day I would have to look at Rylan and Abby again, and they'd go, Dad, remember that time whenever you had literally had a front row seat to Ted Cruz before he became the Ted Cruz all of us now know? You were there. And Ted Cruz told you, I want you to come work with me from the House in Washington, D.C. and help me fight this battle. You had friends that were coming to you saying, we will support you financially, spiritually, whatever it takes. We want you to go fight with us. Fight for us. And Dad, you said no. And I couldn't reconcile that. I just couldn't reconcile it. So the way I look at it, it's time to take that grassroots activism to yet another level. And that's what this is for me, guys. The thought of going to Washington, D.C., when I say it's not appealing, when I compare it to Nineveh, I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
Come on.
It is a dark, dark place. But you know what? If those of us don't go shine the light, the darkness will not flee. But if we go shine it, it will flee.
That's right.
And I'm taking this mindset with me to Washington. If I don't win this race, I will have no regrets. It was an act of obedience. I feel like I was called to take this step, to walk through this door and say, yes, Lord. Now, I'll tell you right now, Ray Myers, I kept thinking this was going to be an Abraham and Isaac moment. And somebody, an angel would jump up and go, no, we just want to see if you do it. Same for $3,125, you don't have to file.
Surprise.
Yeah, and Cheryl, nobody showed up. And so, here we are. But, we could win. And now it becomes an new mission field. But either way, and I want y'all to hear me, and I want you to hear me clearly. Whether I am not victorious in this race, or whether I become Congressman Jason Wright, that will not be my identity. My identity was determined when I was 9 years old and I accepted the truth of what happened for me over 2,000 years ago on Calvary's cross.
Amen.
It will not be defined by whether or not I'm a failed congressional candidate or I become a congressman. It's time to take this activism to another level. I'm ready to fight. I have walked in the shadows, followed in the footsteps of a man who would stare down anybody for the sake of constitutional principles, limited government and liberty. I have walked. I'll never forget, y'all, whenever Ted gave his 22-hour floor speech. I was in Dallas that night and I'm watching it on a I'm watching on my laptop with two of my friends, and I started choking up. And they're like, what's the matter? What's the deal? I said, that's my friend on that floor, and he is all alone. Y'all, with the exception of those of us that were close to him and his true friends, when it came to other members, there was a few. Louis Gomer stood beside him, a few others, but there were so many people that just fled. And I watched that. That's the example I've had. Watching a true, courageous leader for the conservative cause. Understanding and helping develop policy from the constituents to listen to voters, to listen to business owners, and be able to go back and go, Senator, these folks need help. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is acting like a Gestapo on these smaller regional banks and these smaller lenders. We've got to do something. So guess what? The CFPB that was once a $500 million bureaucracy with no congressional oversight, thanks to Ted Cruz and thanks to us being out in the streets listening to constituents, now at a minimum, they're a part of the appropriations process. CFPB, if you want to continue, you're going to have to answer some questions for the first time thanks to Ted Cruz. It's things like that that I've had the privilege to work on. So now, as you look at this race, and I tell you, as those who would support me and those that would get behind me, when you're asked the question, why Jason over one of the others? It's very simple. I've been an activist, a volunteer, working while no one else was looking, not wanting anything in return, but knowing that we had the right people representing us. And then joining and having a mentor in Ted Cruz. I mean, listen, this is huge, and this is why I was humbled, because let me tell you something. Y'all know how Senator Cruz is. He does not throw around his endorsement. And when I called him and I said, okay, if I do this, are you with me? He didn't hesitate for a moment. He said, I'm going to lean in. I'm going to lean in publicly. I'll do anything I can. He said, I would love to have you to work with from the House and support what we're trying to get done in Washington, D.C. What an honor to have, and I'm telling you, to have what I consider the conservative line that Ted Cruz is, say, join me at another level, take activism to a new level, is one of the most honoring things I can possibly imagine. But I can't do it on my own. I need y'all. But know this. I'm just an old country boy from Sulphur Springs, Texas. I'm the first, and this is what's awesome. This is America. I'm the first member of my family to ever graduate from college. I put myself through college. I got a football scholarship. I played football, not because I liked it, but because my dad did. That doesn't usually work out too well. But I was determined to not go home. I gave up my scholarship. I got a CDL truck driver's license, and I went to work for Moore Supply Company, hauling pipe and plumbing supplies all over East Texas. Graduated in 4 years with no debt, a 3.2 GPA, and a job waiting for me. Just a first-generation college graduate from Sulphur Springs, Texas, who worked his way through school, and is now standing before you with the potential to become a United States Congressman. Let me tell you something, folks. That has very, very little to do with Jason Wright. It has everything to do with the United States of America and the promise that it holds for each and every one of us. And I will fight to my dying day to make sure that promise never goes away, that it's available for my girls, for their children, and their children's children. That's why I'm in this. It's because I will always fight to remember that the Second Amendment is what it says. Each and every one of us have the right to keep and bear arms. There's no asterisk, doesn't discuss the stock. We have the right to keep and bear arms. When it comes to the issue of life, it's not just a moral issue to protect the unborn, it's a constitutional issue. That is a human being, that is a human life, that is an American life. That it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to surround and protect, legislatively and otherwise. the safest place a child should be is in his or her mother's womb. It's not in it. When it comes to border security, Thomas Jefferson once said, "A country without borders is not a country." America is a country. America is the greatest country ever known to man. She should be protected by a strong wall by any means necessary.
There you go. Build a wall.
Folks, we've got big, big, big challenges ahead of us. And I love it. I love it. You know, Patton was upset because all the great wars were over, that he wasn't going to be able to saddle up on a horse and charge. He got upset during World War II. And you know, those of us who, we look back to the founders and we look back to the founding of our country and the revolution, it's kind of hard to go, gosh, man, to be able to have a scrap like that. I look at it with excitement. And so whenever people get cynical, it's easy to get cynical in these days. It's easy to sit there and watch what's happening right now when the Democrats are telling every one of you a group of illegal aliens are more important than you. Telling our military, our servicemen and women, these illegal aliens, these lawbreakers, they are more important than our soldiers. It's very easy to get cynical. But you know what? Praise God. Praise God. George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Sam Adams, the rebel rouser himself, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, the list goes on. Thank God they didn't get so cynical as to say, it's just too much. This is the greatest empire on earth. Praise God they didn't. And guys, I'm not going to get cynical. I'll get angry. I believe in righteous anger. I believe it can be a very powerful tool. But I'm not going to get cynical. We've got a fight ahead of us. And God willing, with your help, I'll get to go jump in that fight. It'd be the honor of my life. Thank you.